2025, the federal government collapses, power falls to the states. That means every base, every port, every airfield inside their borders is now under local control. National Guard units, police forces, even Coast Guard ships, all of it now answers to the state where it sits. At first, some smaller states call for alliances. Others move fast as they understand that whoever seizes the most fuel, food, and factories will decide the future. And so the clashes begin. So the question is, which state ends up on top? And remember, this is just a sandbox scenario. Thanks. On the West Coast, California rises as an immediate giant. San Diego alone home courts 3 aircraft carriers, a huge Marine Corps base, and a major slice of the Pacific Fleet. Washington adds Trident submarines at Naval Base Kitsap Bangor,
We control
and
our
the
own
Army and
destiny
Air Force
now.
mass at Joint Base Lewis McChord. Oregon contributes airfields and guard brigades. Together, the coast inherits high-tech industry, major ports, and tens of thousands of active-duty troops. But there's a catch: oil. California's Navy looks unbeatable until you remember fuel. Texas pumps over 10 times as much oil. And without imports, California's carriers and jets run dry fast. The South, by contrast, is swimming in fuel. Texas alone has the largest National Guard in the country, about 20,000 strong, plus 2 heavy Army divisions at Fort Hood and Fort Bliss. Dice Air Force Base gives them B-1 bombers, long-range strike aircraft able to reach across continents. Add Oklahoma, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, and Virginia, and suddenly the South controls the world's largest naval base at Norfolk, the 2nd Marine Division at Camp Lejeune, and Gulf refineries that keep jets and tanks roaring. On paper, the Southern Coalition looks unstoppable.
Look at the data spike from the
The
reactor
Midwest
schematic.
starts smaller,
Cross-referencing
but
with the
sits on
F-35
critical
telemetry.
assets.
We have
Whiteman Air
synchronization.
Force Base
The
in
alliance is
Missouri
stable.
flies B-2 stealth bombers. Lima, Ohio keeps the Abrams line rolling, while Detroit retools for trucks, armor kits, and components. And most importantly, this region feeds the rest of the country. Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, and Nebraska control America's corn. The Midwest may not start with the biggest army, but it can feed one forever. The Northeast holds important
Barksdale,
pieces
AFB,
too.
Louisiana.
New York has the
B-52s
10th
take
Mountain
off.
Division
Gulf
and
refineries
attack
pump
drones in
oil
its guard.
24/7.
Vermont's
Fuel
guard
dominance
flies
visualized.
F-35 stealth fighters. Connecticut has the submarine base at Groton. But the region has almost no oil, little farmland, and no way to sustain a long war. Their only hope is forming alliances or defending their cities with sheer stubbornness. As for the small population states, Wyoming, despite its size, Delaware, Rhode Island, they risk getting absorbed in days. Within the first week, the country condenses into 4 mega blocks. The West Coast Federation, California, Oregon, Washington, joined by Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico. They know they need each other to hold the Pacific and counter Texas's power. The Southern Coalition, Texas, pulls together Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, and Virginia. The Midwest Union, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, and the Dakotas pledge to defend the breadbasket together. And the Northeast Alliance, New England, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, clinging to survival along the I-95 corridor. But not everyone makes it. By the end of week 1, the South seizes Maryland and Washington, D.C. Delaware is absorbed instantly. The Mason-Dixon line becomes a front line again. The first bigger clashes start within weeks. On the Great Plains, Kansas becomes America's Kirks. Texas armored divisions sweep north along the I-35 corridor, overrunning Wichita. Midwest defenders fall back to Kansas City, blowing bridges and using the Missouri River as a shield. Weeks of tank battles rage until the front stalls in the Kansas City suburbs. In the Southwest, California pushes Marines across the Colorado River into Arizona. They seize Hoover Dam, but it doesn't connect to Texas's power grid, so the South keeps running, while California bleeds resources holding the desert. Texas armor races out of Fort Bliss, colliding with them near Albuquerque. Urban combat around Kirtland Air Force Base turns into a nightmare. The West barely holds, but the desert front stalls out with neither side able to move forward. In the Rockies, Texas drives into eastern Colorado, aiming for the Denver area Suncor refinery complex. At first, they roll through the flat plains, but once they climb toward Colorado Springs, the mountain passes become death traps. Western Allied mountain troops ambush convoys in narrow canyons. The Rockies turn into a fortress the South can't crack. And on the East Coast, the South pushes up I-95. The 82nd Airborne and Marines spearhead the advance. Philadelphia comes under heavy artillery fire. Suburbs burn. And Atlantic-based Navy forces out of Norfolk folk. U.S. Fleet forces and Second Fleet tighten a blockade on New York Harbor. But the Northeast digs in. Pennsylvania's Guard and local militias turn Philadelphia into a fortress. The South reaches the outskirts, but the city refuses to fall. By month 3, the fight isn't about who has the most tanks, it's about who can still keep them running. The South controls about half of America's oil. Its refineries keep Southern tanks and jets running at full speed. The West and Northeast ration every drop. California tries bringing in oil from Alaska and Latin America, but Southern warships target the tankers at sea. New York City and Boston go dark for days at a time, surviving on Canadian power sent through Vermont and New York. The Midwest controls the Farm Belt. Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska stockpile corn and wheat, cutting off shipments to the South as shortages start to bite. Meanwhile, the West makes a deal. They send high-tech drones and electronics, and in return, the Midwest sends grain north by rail. That quiet partnership keeps both blocs alive. Industry drives the map even further. In the Midwest, Detroit shifts to building trucks and armor kits, while Lima, Ohio keeps the tank lines rolling. Out west, Silicon Valley becomes the center for drones and cyber warfare. The South turns out ships and aircraft and runs big chip plants in Texas. But the most advanced tech still comes from Oregon and Arizona. Spare parts for aircraft are short everywhere, so all sides start stripping old planes and electronics just to keep the rest running. In the end, the South relies on numbers, while the North leans on technology. At their peak, the South controls 2/3 of America. New York is under siege. Kansas City is lost, and their tanks push into St. Louis. But the bigger they grow, the thinner their lines stretch. Convoys are ambushed in Missouri. Guerrillas blow up depots in Kentucky. The advance stalls. The West shifts to fast mobile attacks. Instead of crossing into Baja with Mexico staying neutral, Marines use helicopters and aircraft to leap over the Colorado River, seizing crossings near Yuma and Parker before driving on Phoenix from the west. At the same time, mountain troops push through Utah and New Mexico, forcing the South back. At their peak, West Coast forces even reach Oklahoma City and El Paso, threatening Dallas itself. But their supply lines stretch too far across deserts and mountains. The advance grinds to a halt. The Midwest joins the counterattack. They retake Kansas, storm St. Louis, and even capture Louisville, Kentucky. For the first time, the South loses ground in bulk. Midwestern morale soars, but they lack the strength to push deeper. The Northeast, long battered, finally strikes back. With Southern forces overstretched, they counterattack from New Jersey. Philadelphia is liberated block by block. It's a massive morale boost, but the advance stalls in Maryland.
Texas shipyards.
After years of
New
grinding
destroyers
war,
launch.
2 possible endings
Southern
emerge.
naval buildup continues.
The first, and most likely, is a Southern victory. Even battered, the South still holds the oil, the refineries, and the population pool. The West and Midwest alliance cracks under pressure. Midwestern states, sick of destruction, sign a ceasefire with the South in exchange for autonomy and trade. California is isolated, cut off from food and fuel. The South masses its armies, smashing through the desert into Los Angeles and the Central Valley. Once California falls, the rest of the West surrenders. The Northeast, starved by blockade, collapses soon after. The South dictates terms and builds a new union in its own image. There is, however, one alternative. If the West, Midwest, and Northeast manage to unite under one command, they could still win. Imagine a three-front assault. Midwest tanks pushing through Tennessee, West Coast Marines striking Texas from the west, and Northeast troops holding Southern forces in place along the Atlantic. At the same time, special forces hit the Gulf refineries. If Houston and Baton Rouge go up in flames, the South runs out of fuel. Their armies stretched deep into the plains in the Appalachians come to a standstill.
All I have until
Surrounded
resupply.
and
Now
cut
move
off,
along.
Southern strongholds from Atlanta to Dallas fall one after another. Either way, the old United States is gone. In its place, burned-out cities, shattered farmland, and one coalition standing over what's left. The victory doesn't look like parades. It looks like ration cards, blackouts, and guerrilla uprisings. The real deciding factor isn't tanks or carriers. It's whether the alliances can hold together under pressure. And what about you? Which side would you put your bet on? If you want more, check out what happens when an Apache helicopter fights in the Vietnam War. Watch the video on your screen. Thanks.